Call this work session to order for Tuesday, July 15th, 2025 at 5:30 at the Emmett Shockley Administration Building. Mr. Crowe, can you call roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Paez,
Present.
Mrs. Cameron,
Present.
Mrs. Crumley,
Present.
Mr. Roscoe,
Present.
Mr. Crowe, present.
Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of Mexico, to be a symbol of friendship among united cultures.
Any changes to the agenda?
No presenters.
Move approval of the agenda.
Okay,
I'll second.
Mr. Crowe.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Paez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes.
Mrs. Crumley,
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe.
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.
And with that, on to presentation and discussion.
Mr. President, members of the board, today we are going to be having a discussion about a variety of elements of transportation, our to and from contracts, a little bit of activity contracts, also some information about our discipline matrix. And so starting us off today, Patty is going to help us. We're going to break this presentation into a couple of particular separate parts. Our first topic of discussion is going to be about the to and from services that our contractors provide. And then we'll take a little short break. And after that, we'll discuss the activity portions that are separate from the to and from contract. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Treviso and have the presentation in front of you, as well as copies of some contracts and MOUs in front of you.
Before we go forward, I just want to thank you guys for showing up so this can be discussed and be able to bounce questions off of you to be able to get more of an understanding for us as a board. Thank you guys for showing up. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Overman. Thank you for having us here today to be able to answer some of the questions that you all have pertaining to our transportation services. As you can see in the audience, we have Mr. Diego Sanchez, Willie Sanchez from MMT Buses. We also have Brandon and Mrs. Haynes from Haynes Buses joining us. In a little while, I'll be able to turn it over to them to kind of have you ask questions of them or anything they might want to share. But before I do, I wanted to go through and kind of recap some important information. As you can see in your packet and in the presentation, I'm going over our fleet again. So with Deming Public Schools, we have 2 route buses, 2 of our special education buses that are still currently run by the district. We also have 7 activity buses, and we have 4 spares. Now with M&T, we have 31 route buses, and they do have, correct me if I'm wrong, you had 3, now you have 4 spares?
Yes,
That's correct.
1.5, well, let's get them.
When we get the new ones. And then with Haynes, we have 16 route buses and we have 3 spares as well.
Yes.
And so that kind of just recaps the fleet to kind of give you a better idea of what we're talking about. I also went ahead and we talked about this the last time, but I went ahead and included a slide to kind of show that district enrollment. Now, this is 120th day that was reported in February. Okay, so we have 2,819 bus riders at that time. Of those, 184 are exceptional student riders. Local riders are broken down to 2,036. And then students coming from the port of entry for a total of 783. And as you can see, that breakdown there also goes 324 to Columbus out of entry. And then the remainder, 459, coming into town to our secondary schools, 6th through 12th grade. Okay. The other thing I want to recap to kind of give you an idea of the mileage, we are a very rural community and our longest routes being port of entry. And so this is the breakdown between both Haynes and M&T. Mr. Haynes has 8 buses going south. M&T has a total of 7 buses. Of those 15 buses, 2 of them are students at DIS, and then 4 of them are Red Mountain buses, and then the remainder of 9 at Deming High School. Okay. So now, this is where, as we go into negotiations every year, what I've done since I've been with the district is I've requested a team from the district to come together to assist, especially because we are newer to the department and we want to be able to cover as much as we can with the negotiations. And so our team, as I mentioned the last time, consists of our CFO, our superintendent, at the time, our deputy superintendent, and then this last year was both the assistant director, myself, and one of the clerical staff members, along with the contractors together. And so what we do is, when we come together, this will show you a projection of a total of, let me bring up the spreadsheet instead, because it's a little bit easier to maneuver. Charles, does it transfer over? I got my spreadsheet now to kind of make it easier to read. You also have that in your packet as a separate sheet towards the very back.
No.
There we go. Now, this is where you can see at the very top, what's highlighted in yellow is the state allocation for the past 3 years. It has the total allocation with the contract allocation and then the rental fees. Mr. Addock is gonna go ahead and help me kind of explain those in a little bit more detail in a little bit. But then I go down and break down the M&T portion and the Haynes portion. And so one of the things that we're finding out as we've gone through this process, this will be my second time. We're trying to have this spreadsheet match the contract template, because it is a requirement through PED that we separate the fuel costs. And so one of the things we found was that when we would come together for negotiation, we had fuel, OM&F, what we call operation, maintenance, and fuel, all together when we're negotiating along with salaries. And so that's where we go back and forth, where they requested 10%, we went for 4, and then we settled for 6. And so this is where you'll see the calculations. Now, Mr. Addock has helped a lot with that and can explain the percentages a little bit better. So I'll turn it over to him to talk about the current contract and the comparison between it.
And Joe, before you start, let me point out to the board, as Ms. Patty was referring, we're trying to match this spreadsheet to the appendix that is in the fleet service contract. So if you turn to appendix B in each of your packets, you can see that it's broken down by fuel, operation, maintenance, and salary and benefits, and of course the rental fees. So what Mr. Adcock is trying to do is, and as we go into next year, make sure that we're talking about each of these things individually. So again, you find that appendix B in each of your packets. That will be aligning to some of the terminology that Joe will be talking about. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay. So, President, members of the board, just to give you some of the numbers, if you look back up at the top in the yellow area, where Patty was talking about our allocations, notice there in the contract allocations, the percentage all the way to the right-hand side there is 104%. That's our allocation increase for the bus contractors, for the allocation, if I should say. That's where we started. That's the reason why we talked about 4% to begin with, is because the allocation went up by 4%. So that was where we said, well, let's just put it in at that.
And Joe, you're referring to the allocation from the public education department.
Correct.
Went up 4%.
Right. This is from the education department. We did not talk about or do any negotiations on the rental fees, because the rental fees is a pass-through from PED through to the contractors, depending upon buses that they need to replace. And so they're on, I believe it's a 12-year cycle for replacing buses. So as a bus ends up at the end of life, then PED puts in a rental fee, if you will, And then that allows the bus contractors then to purchase those. I will talk about that a little bit more here in just a minute to show you an example of that. So going down and just gonna look at the M&T at first. Notice there where it says salaries and benefits in column H, that is a 6% increase. That's what we had talked about, negotiation back and forth, and it come in on 6% for salaries and benefits. The other piece to that we talked about, the 6%, is down where it says fuel, opera, and maintenance per mile. That was an increase of 6%. That went from $1.89 per mile to $2 a mile. Again, a 6% increase. If you look at total dollars under either operation and maintenance or fuel, it doesn't come out to that 6%. Part of the reason for that is a different calculation for how fuel is put on the contract for this year versus prior years. Okay. What happened this year to put the fuel piece is the transportation department said, okay, a bus usually gets average 8 miles per gallon. Fuel around here is about 339 at this point. So that's how it was calculated. How many miles are they doing versus that rate? Okay. But it still comes back down to the $2 per mile for all three of those things, fuel, operation, and maintenance. So you have to look at it more on the total basis. Now, the other thing that comes into play, if you look here, you look up at M&T and say, well, wait a minute. That only says 4% in total contract. The difference there is the mileage. If you'll notice down, their miles per day, as reported to us on that 100th day, was 1,835 miles. We multiply that out times the 178 days that they transport students. That comes out to the 326,630 miles for the year. And notice that is a slight reduction. So even though prices kind of went up by 6% with a little bit of reduction in miles, that's what's causing that to look a little different. To look at something a little bit different, if we look at Haynes, their number looks like it's a little bit more than 6%. But again, we had 6% on salaries and benefits. We had 6% on the bottom line there of the $2 per mile. But their mileage went up by a few per day. So it went from 1234 to 1247 per day. Again, you multiply that out, and that's the reason why it looks as if it's just a slight increase or a slight more of an increase. Any questions on that?
So let me provide some clarifying points while the board members are thinking of questions. So one, again, I think it's important for the board to know the 120th day reporting. It's a standard reporting by the state. One question that often comes with, hey, I've heard this discussion how sometimes we dip into operational funds, right, to cover some of these contracts, and that has to do that the PED literally on the 120th day by statute asks the contractors to report a physical count of the kids riding. So it's not kids enrolled and eligible to ride. It's kids that on that day rode the bus. So oftentimes on the 120th day, you'll see ride the bus today, win a this, win a that. It's because they want as many kids to ride that day as possible. So one question I did not ask Patty to prepare, but if you're ever wondering why sometimes there's a shortfall between what the allocation from the PED is and what we're paying out, some of that has to do with less kids. Not all of our eligible kids are riding. So off the top of your head, Patty, this is like a quiz. Do you know, we have 5, I don't know how many eligible riders that we have in the district. And then on the count day, did 60% of them ride? Okay, I know, the quiz. Right. Sure.
Now, we've talked about two things. Number one, try to increase ridership at the beginning of the year, which is something that we started last year. We had actually the drivers said, hey, we want to be part of the open house at the school sites. And so we started having booths at the school sites and had our transportation staff along with the bus drivers. And so then we would have like, hey, sign up for transportation, see if your child qualifies and, you know, things like that, kind of a campaign to increase ridership. That's one. Number two, that in talking to Joe and just again, coming up with new ideas, we're gonna do exactly what Superintendent Wogomus talked about just now, is on those days, at the very beginning of the year, Pet will give us the dates, December and in February. And so we'll start putting those flyers out right before, and we'll start blasting social media, maybe getting messages to the schools. If you ride this day, you know, trying just to increase the ridership, not only overall, but on those two specific days, because that in turn is going to increase our allocation.
And so I just wanted to point that out as you're asking questions, because inevitably, I know Mr. Adcock and Mr. Dolby before are probably coming to say, hey, we're having to pay this much out of operational to cover our to and from contracts. That is sometimes a factor of us not having the, getting the full allocation from the state because of just the ridership. And that's a PED rule, not a DPS rule or a transportation contract rule. So I just want to.
Example, so the dates that were selected in the past have been either that Friday right before we go on break in December, or Friday, Valentine's Day, which at that point,
Right.
we don't allow.
And those are set by the-
Yeah. Things like that, so ridership goes
Those are
down.
set by the
But we
PED.
have no control of those dates. They come from-
Conveniently, convenient. Okay, so I apologize. I wanted to clarify that because I know, again, we're gonna talk to money here and allocations and paying out of operational, but those 2 days are set by the report date set by the PED. You gotta count them like this.
And the other part of that is it's an average of that day, both to
Correct.
and
80.
from. So we may have more kids coming to school
Mhm.
on the bus, but they don't all leave on the bus. Valentine's Day, they can't take balloons, so their parents are picking them up. Or they have after-school activities where they're not on that bus for after school. You take 60 kids on that, that's 30, throwing your average off right there,
Yeah.
just for that. So those are things that, and I know that the state has been talking about different parts of that and how to handle this better.
Mhm.
The other piece that I've been talking about for a while is those buses still have to do that entire route. In the morning, they have to go see if that furthest kid, if they're there to be picked up, they have to go there. If they're not there, they still have to, the bus still has to go. And so I'm interested in digging into more what that funding formula looks like from the state and trying to understand that better so that we can, better educate you.
Well, thank you for that moment. I just wanted to clarify that because I know that will come up, and I don't know if you all have any questions for Joe or Patty at this time, or any of the clarifying questions.
The fuel and operation and maintenance per mile, is that factored by PED? No.
That's all part of the negotiation.
And so I'll share with you, President Orozco, this is something that we discovered in kind of a learning process on how some of these things are negotiated. So there's this per mile situation that, you know, where the O, M, N, and F, the fuel, the maintenance, the operations were together at this $1.98 or $2 per mile. We did discover, and this is something that could be applied next year for clarity, that those three are done separately, right? Fuel is done by mileage, right? Very simply, the miles reported, you know, cost per mile. I don't know what fuel costs. I'm not an expert in that. And then I've seen, again, for future conversations, that the maintenance is actually calculated by bus, right? So we have, you know, there's 81 buses that are being maintained. Here's our estimated maintenance cost per bus. That way, it gets a little bit away from putting that maintenance cost in with the miles. And so those are things, again, as we go forward, that hasn't been the practice here. So I don't blame anybody here. But going forward, for clarity purposes for the board, that may be what we want to look at, right? Fuel by itself, separately by mile, cost per bus, because an older bus may require more maintenance than a newer bus, right? So you break that down by bus, you can track those costs over the year. And then, of course, maybe something a little more, again, this is not my area of expertise, but something, again, separate for salaries. So that's how that was this time, but like I said, not required by the PED.
So
Go
the
ahead.
fuel, if we all of a sudden get charged California prices, we cover it no matter what. Or do we go by what the contract is, right?
So right now, it's already, like, the negotiations happen for the upcoming year,
Year.
so we go off. of
But what if
that.
it goes up?
Yeah, so
But then
it-
what happens too,
Or it goes at 3?
If it goes.
Yeah.
up,
what if it go, you know,
Say for December and the prices go to $4 to $5 a mile, we're still on this one unless you guys contract like
but
a.
what if it goes down where we don't get our money back, huh?
Years before, was it 2 years or 3 years? We actually, gas price went up, so we actually went to the Fed and they reimbursed us, right? The Fed came up with emergency fuel money and allocated it across the districts for us, and it was like a few thousand.
But then what happens if it goes down? It goes to $1.50. Then what happens?
Yeah, we have, Vicky and the.
We're not gonna get a check back?
board,
They're gonna send it to them.
And then the next thing that I gotta ask, when I looked at the contract in the back, it says that the board, we didn't get to do no negotiation with you guys. We had somebody else that left negotiate for us. So, and Patty, I'm not trying, you should be negotiating, not, and get everything together and then put it into the crew. I just don't understand why we've had so many other people. Number one, a person that left, that's number one. We should have never allowed that. And we should have done it as a group with more than just one person, because the way I was told, it was one person that negotiated with them. It wasn't the group, it was one person.
Well, I mean, and I have to correct, it wasn't even, it was the interim superintendent at the time, Nips, that joined us because these negotiations happened in May of this year for the upcoming school year. So last year, every year it happens around May. We start maybe at the
But
end of.
why weren't we brought it to the table? Because we're the ones signing for this contract. That's the thing, maybe two board members to sit in on the negotiations.
So, President Roscoe, members of the board, so typically, and this is a conversation I did have this weekend, through policy, policies that you've approved, you do delegate some contract negotiations to me
Mhm.
as the superintendent. So what I do hear you say, Member Kroll, is that one, let's make sure going forward that it's not and I think that was something probably this May that was put into place, that it was a team on behalf of the district. That the superintendent should be, for 2 years, okay, since you've been on board, Patty, the superintendent should be, engaged in that and be a policy, that is delegated to me as the superintendent.
Hmm.
As for your question about, hey, fuel prices up, fuel prices down, do we get a rebate? That is a question I don't have an answer to. However, what I can say, going forward in the future, making sure that when we're negotiating, we're doing this not by, taking OM, operations, maintenance, and fuel together by mile. That kind of makes it difficult to determine, is this a fuel cost?
Mhm.
Is this an operation and maintenance cost? So I think going forward, Member Kroll, if we can do our negotiations by mile by fuel, right?
Mhm.
And then operations and maintenance separate by bus, what that allows us to do is the contractors can come say, hey, we've looked at a 3-year average of fuel costs. This is what we're using very specifically by mile, kind of as Joe has broken it down here. If we do that well and it's very clear, and let's say we do a fuel cost that's low, right? And we're running out of fuel money. That's something that, one, if the contractors need an adjustment, they have to come back and ask, if the state's not going to kick in an emergency allocation for fuel, it's just something that in the negotiations we sort of underestimated, then, they could come back and possibly ask for amendment of the contract for extra fuel. So what I hear you say, Member Kroll, is with that fuel, which is going to be the thing that may fluctuate the most within a year, we want to really be spot on, right? As spot on as we can with that to make sure that, the contractors don't have to come back to us, or that we've inflated the cost per gallon so much that, right? You know where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, as for a rebate, I don't know about rebate, right? We're into a contract, but let's negotiate that one very accurately. I would
Makes
suggest.
sense.
I think Board Member Paez had a question.
I think you answered it.
Oh.
Sorry.
I had a question. Just so I can understand the contract allocation table a little better and the explanation. So does it mean then that just because PED allocated a 4% increase doesn't mean you're gonna get it? Is that what I was hearing?
Well, we get the allocation, the full amount of the allocation,
Okay.
because it's based on the prior year
Prior year number.
ridership.
Oh, okay, that's what I missed.
So you get your ridership, that's what goes into the formula, and then you get that for the next year. Your 80th and 120 day, then
For
for
next year.
this year goes in.
Oh, okay.
Next year allocation. So we do get that allocation. Now, the rental piece of that does change throughout the year, because if they end up getting a new bus in throughout the year, then that rental fee kicks in and starts coming to us, and then we come back to the board with a new contract for the change of the rental fees.
And that's why at the top of this spreadsheet, you'll see everything in yellow. It shows just the last 3 years, how that allocation has changed. And so the percentage under column H, right next to the 25-26 school year, it shows that 4% increase that we got this year for fiscal year 26.
Okay.
Then, buses are going up. So.
Let me share about, because I know Joe's gonna talk here in a moment about the rental fees. I think an important thing to also know, right? Bus prices are definitely going up, just like your car prices are going up. I think it's also important to understand, and I know Patty and Joe just helped with this. But I'm not a bus expert. They age out. There's a cycle. I believe for the 26-27 school year, there's quite a few buses that are going to be cycling out. And so we actually have to order buses request buses a whole year ahead of time. So recently, Patty and Joe shared a document with me saying, hey, Nick, these are the buses that are going to expire in 26-27. So we need to get that on the PED's radar now. So we have these rental fees this year that are probably modest, but for 26-27, we may come back to next year, because we're gonna need X amount of more buses, and that cost is gonna be much larger. But Joe's gonna explain why that's really just sort of we're just passing the money.
pass-through.
It's a pass
Yeah.
through. So Joe, I don't know if you want to kind of
So
explain that.
I changed over to a different tab on the spreadsheet, and I'm just giving one example of a bus that was recently purchased. The bus cost of the contractors, because we get copies of the invoices. We actually, while the bus is under this rental agreement, Deming Public Schools is a lien holder on that bus as well. Okay, so this bus costs $129,000. So what PED did is they put, starting March 1st of 25 through June of 29, that they're gonna pay us $33,000 annually for that bus. That they pay us, we turn around, pay the contractor, okay? So if you were to take that $33,000, divide it by 12 months, you get $2,700 a month. You multiply that times the 52 months in that contract. Over that 52 months, the contractors are paid $144,000. Now, it is a business decision of the contractors whether they amortize that and take a loan out and use this money to pay that, or whether they pay it outright and then collect this money over the next 52 months as a return to them.
I do have a question. So you're talking about the fee. So is that part, the rental fee, is that part of the allocation that we get? Or is that
It-
separate funding?
It is part of the allocation, but it is a separate line on the
Oh,
allocation.
It's a separate line.
Right, so if you look back on the previous page up in the yellow, our total allocation for this year is 2.9. Of that, 2.8 is allocated for
Services.
operating the buses. And 175,000 is allocated for rental fees
Okay.
to pay either for buses they've gotten this year or buses that haven't gone through the full rental agreement in the past.
And depending on the bus, the number of buses, that's where you'll see that in the breakdown in the contract, where we're getting the money for PET and then we pay them for those rental fees aside from the transportation service.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Patty or Joe, when it comes to allocating the amount for the rental fee. That's why we're turning this stuff into the PED a year early. So we can see, they can get on the radar about buying buses for 26, 27. And I mean, then the PED's got to investigate, is this a bus that, needs to be replaced? And
It's
so
a very technical-
it is a super technical process.
in May or sometimes early June, which we already did for this upcoming year. And there's 6 buses for Big Barn Mounds, 6.
And then July got 6.
So,
Different
and so it's all just kind of, they help us keep all that straight because we get those lists from them. And then that's what you'll see included in the contract. So every year it'll be changing. So that's where Joe is talking about that amount right there listed under the rental in the yellow part, the last on 25, 26. We might come back next year and you're gonna see that's gonna increase significantly because of the number of buses getting this year, prepping to go.
So I think the most important thing as we're talking about, the information today and we're looking at things in the future, always try to mentally on the to and from contract, mentally separate out the rental fees. Does that make sense? As a factor. And if you're looking at, overall operating costs, fuel that we're paying, try to focus on that fuel, operation, maintenance, salary, and benefit. That's kind of the areas of the contract that are I would say, we talk about more, whereas the rental fees are kind of
Well, those are the fees that we're able to
Right.
talk about, because the rental fees
are the
is
rental
no,
fees.
is no, there's nothing to talk about. That just flows through. And rental fees are set by PED, and they are set for, if it's a smaller bus, it's a certain amount. If it's the bigger bus, it's a certain amount. If there's certain equipment that's needed,
Mhm.
there's different amounts. So it all varies depending upon what the requirements are.
Yeah, and the PED will say you have less mileage, redo your routes. We're not going to replace, we're not going to give you rental fees to replace this bus.
Do they
And I mean,
determine?
Hold on.
with that, I mean, I brought it up because, bus go up, so parts go up.
Yeah.
So I got injectors. I mean, we got injectors, you gotta look at, actuators, turbos. They break down.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we need to buy a new motor, right?
Been down for a whole year almost.
Right.
E&M's selling out, so now you're not the all, everything's cruising. I mean,
Nobody, no mechanical, no diesel mechanic.
So let me look. I think let me pause you on that maintenance thought and let Ms. Cameron ask the question that she has, and I'll go back to that because I had a little thought. Ms. Cameron, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
Well, I was just thinking about some of the distances too, and where they take them to, and where they park them, and all of that. Having used to live on the river when our kids were growing up, they would be left out in the middle of a dirt road.
Right. And so like wear and tear on buses on the rural roads, that's a factor as well. So,
Also, if I can add,
yes,
it
ma'am.
was a factor that if the buses didn't come right on, or if they came early, then we had the situation of our children were out in the middle of nowhere.
Let me go back to this comment here. The Sanchez is correct.
yes.
That we're making. So I think as we again, from my perspective, in the superintendent's chair and trying to make sure I can provide the best information to the school board as we move forward. I think this idea of I'm not a expert in anything mechanical, okay? But I do know that we all see that, right? If our cars are going up, buses are going up. I think as we go forward, in possible discussions next year, we really want to have a handle on a per bus situation for the operation and maintenance. Would be my preference versus this OM&F together in the miles, because what you're telling me here, I completely get it, right? And if you have the 31
So
buses, right?
So
Yeah.
injectors say I got
Yeah.
on that.
Uh-huh.
I bought injectors so it was maybe I bought them in, so this one was in. So we did a full injectors on the bus, and this one was in May of 24,
Mhm.
and I bought another bus, we did full injectors. Paper.
Mhm. That's fine.
So on those, I paid 5,200, then on the following one, couple months, I was paying 6,200.
Correct.
So $1,000 difference.
That's right.
And
and
that's just the injector itself. I mean, labor.
sure,
I mean,
labor.
is-
I hear cracked windshields are a thing, a lot of
Oh,
windshield
You know,
replaced.
windshields are, they're pre-cut windshields now,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
We got these ugly roads,
Right.
highway line, not pretty. We got these newer buses, they're not pre-cut windshields.
Correct.
They're factory windshields.
Right,
And
and-
you know what a factory windshield costs?
I would have-
$800.
no.
Oh, not labor and cooling.
Right,
The installer ain't gonna stock those anymore, you know what I'm saying? So what are we gonna do?
correct,
We don't have a windshield guy.
correct,
What do we do?
correct. Yeah, you have the contract to be.
Order International, first
Sure.
Order International, Las Cruces.
Right.
Not around the corner. We lose our mechanic. What do we do now? We gotta go 60 miles, maintenance.
Absolutely, and I
And if
think.
bus breaks down, what's the towing cost? We had a bus wrecked.
Mhm.
We couldn't tow it, so a tow truck towed it, Las Cruces, $1,800 just to tow it over.
And I would, and
I know it is.
I think, you know, some of these things that we're having the opportunity to share today,
Yeah.
I think for the, you know, for the governing board here with, as again, right? This is what this meeting's for, clarification on some of these costs. I think that, like I said, as we can go forward and talk about how we're gonna break these things down a little more discreetly, that informs, you know, me, the transportation department, and the school board on, because here's the situation, right? And, you know, I know as a district, we want a transportation service that is, you know, safe, is cost effective, and as comprehensive as you know, as available. And that's what I know the expectation of this board is on behalf of, you know, us being stewards of taxpayer money. And obviously, as we, you know, as we possibly move forward next year, we want to make sure that as we come through this, I and Patty can give them the clearest information. For me in the future, that is sort of a you know, a per bus situation, right? And those examples you gave of, hey, this was the cost change in 3 months. You know, we're going to rely on you all to be able to, again, in the future, in negotiations, or in a future transportation meeting, to share that clearly. So I don't know, other questions that anybody had on this part, or anything we need to revisit on some elements of the fuel, the maintenance, the salaries and benefits, and, you know, the increase in some of these costs here. Ms. Baez.
I did have a question on fuel.
Yes, ma'am.
So you pay the regular average rate for fuel, or is there like a bulk? If you buy in bulk, do you get a discount?
So we
We're
buy,
just driving up to 5R and throw your credit card in there and let's go.
So you don't get any kind of a bulk
No.
rate?
I buy in bulk and it's only a few cents difference. So
It's
on
not-
us,
it's not like it used to be.
Much more.
But you're
Yes,
saying
not like they
it's
used to.
worth it.
Not like it.
Not really. It's just more convenient to pump from a tank at my yard instead of going to the pump.
So you all basically pay what everybody else.
Yeah, in our facility, I mean, we don't have no big tank. I mean, we'll need maybe a tank that's maybe 8,000 gallons. And to be dual insulated, it has to be regulated. I mean, you have to have a filter. That's going. So I mean, the cost on that is gonna be up there, so.
So it's not.
We got a fill trailer, it's like 1,000 gallons, so we fill that one up by the pump and fill our buses up. I mean, we're filling out maybe shoot. Was it, 2,000 gallons maybe a week, couple week. That's a lot of fuel. I know,
Weekly, is 2,000 gallons,
yeah,
just to fill up our buses and get us going through that week. Friday, we'll do the same thing.
2,000 gallons
2,000 gallons.
for one bus.
no,
The whole week,
Oh, okay.
31 buses.
Other questions our board members might have about this this topic?
Thank you.
And then as far as the end of the year, you guys always send those expenditure report, about that, I wouldn't put in how much fuel we spent for the year and all that, that's what we put it in on all of that.
That's the
So
second part, once we break it down in the contract, so say, for example, we're working on this upcoming year's contracts. They then, at the end of the year, have to provide a report to PED that shows the expenditure on fuel and salaries and benefits and everything like that. And so pretty much it matches what is in our contracts.
How often are we changing buses?
Every
12 years.
Every 12
We
years?
do 15, depending if actually say, you know, this bus is reliable, but I mean, that's rare. Yeah. That's rare.
But then how long is a warranty for a bus when you guys, but we pay 100, well, you guys pay
Really.
there's no warranty on the buses? You don't have a year?
Be year, 2 years, but that depends on the part of the bus. Your DEF system is only like 12 months. For your DEF system, your engine is a year, and then certain components is less, 6 months, 3 months, 4 months.
And you only got
Yeah,
two
the
options,
lift
Albuquerque or Las Cruces. And how long they gonna wait?
And then you have a situation that me and Patty just stressed about is I bought brand new sped bus, got it in January. The lift had a problem with the wheelchair. One, it caught fire. Two, one of the lines blew. Set it up to Albuquerque to warranty it. The warranty for the company, they wouldn't honor it. They said, well, then it was installed wrong in the manufacturer. International wouldn't warranty it, but luckily we have a good truck dealer up there, Roberts, who says, I'll cover it, don't worry. So we have things like that that do help us now and then, but I still ended up paying about $1,200 just.
And for the amount of money you pay for a bus, you should at least have 2 or 3 years of warranty.
I think, to your point, Member Coleman, to your point, Mr. Haynes, folks that work on buses and diesels and large, those, there's a lack of those people, right? Out there in the society. So we're competing for, a scarce resource, I suppose.
When you say diesel, it's an automatic. We're gonna add a couple $100 because it's a diesel. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things is that, I mean, if you look at this just from a person walking down the street and, just a person that doesn't know anything about all this stuff, $2.1 million is what we're spending, and we have 2,800 kids that ride the bus. And so kind of hard to wrap your head around. And so that's what the purpose of this is as well, to kind of get that out there and to share the information. So when people approach us, in the community, like, why are we spending $2.1 million on driving kids around?
And I want to emphasize what Superintendent Wolgemuth and President Orozco said, is that the board has an obligation to have fiscal oversight over these things, right? And so when I'm looking at the contract from previous school year to this upcoming school year, and I'm seeing a 34% difference in fuel cost, and I'm seeing a 20% increase in operations, and I'm wondering why. And none of that was explained before. I really appreciate Superintendent Wolgemuth's ideas of future negotiations being based on actual numbers, because I think that we owe the public to do that. Instead of saying, well, let's just do a 6% increase per mile, and then we're gonna finagle the numbers a little bit and make it spread out so that it somehow equals 6%. That's confusing.
Yeah.
You don't like to do math, and I was really struggling here, and I think I got it, but I don't think that's fair to the public.
And Member Crumley, I think that, Member Crumley, members of the board, I think too, again, no fault of anybody in this room, this per mile situation, combining the O, M, N, and F, which I think that caused the greatest, for me, due to this, caused the greatest lack of clarity.
Mhm.
And those were the questions that I had. I don't, and Mr. Adcock explained this to me when I was kind of going on, because, well, Nick, he says, in other industries, right, if you're driving a big rig, you're paying, sometimes it is a per mile, right? Those drivers are getting paid per mile, and it's covering, right, the O, M, N, and F of their rig. And so I could see from a historical perspective how mileage may have been used under that lens of like the big rig, people drive a rig, that may have been okay, but I think for clarity purposes for the public, right, to know, oh my gosh, yeah, they do have 31 buses, and they are maintaining, and this one is 11 years old on its last leg, and this is the maintenance on this one. This newer one, is costing us a little bit less, on average to maintain. Hey, I would appreciate, again, in possible future negotiations, that you come and say, hey, these are the, and again, some of the terms you're using, I'm not familiar with.
Yeah.
These are the largest components that we are replacing commonly, and this was just kind of the increase on these over the year, and that
You
gives,
can't really tell them. It's
right, you never know until.
you have a good year, then next thing you know, engineering over there.
That's correct.
But it's confusing, right? To like a regular person. Like, I'm looking at you know, this spreadsheet and I see average mileage for M&T went down, but fuel costs and operations went up huge. And then you look at Haynes, whose miles went up a little bit, and your percentage in fuel went down from last year, but you have the same number of buses, slightly different routes. It's confusing. And I just think that rather than lumping it all in together, increasing it by 6% and then you're sparsing it out again somehow. I don't.
That's what's happening.
Yeah, okay, and I don't understand it. You're together and then you're separate.
Yeah.
I think that it would be more fair and make more sense and be more transparent to not just the board, but also the public if we were actually using a methodology based on average maintenance costs and actual fuel used and projected fuel per mile or whatever, like how you see it in other places. And nobody, I mean, nobody questions that the district needs transportation and no one's questioning that you're providing that service. That's not the issue at all. The issue is trying to understand the methodology behind the contract amounts. And like President Orozco mentioned, the public just hears a number and the public just hears percentages. And that's what we hear most of the time too. And so I think we have an obligation to say, wait, like why, you know?
And we have 800 employees that we have to justify spending money as well, because you guys are asking for a 6%, but we just gave our employees 4%. How does that look for us? And how does that go well with them? Because everybody struggles right now. Homes are struggling. It's hard to put food on the table.
Yeah.
Costs are expensive.
Student
You go buy
enrollment's
meat.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go buy meat at the store and you go broke with one meal, you know? And so I think it's not only us having to justify it to the public, we have 800 employees that we got to justify it to as well.
And it's our duty.
Yeah.
It's our duty.
Especially when I think it's important to understand, especially when the cost for the to and from contract, like I mentioned earlier, exceeds the pet allocation, right? If the to and from if the pet allocation was X and then our contract, you know, was X and it was right, a cancel out, right? That would be a little bit different story.
Yes.
But being that and not just here, I understand that, right? That many districts with large infrastructure are having to subsidize. It's important for the public to know, well, part of that has nothing to do with anybody here. It has to do with, you know, the PED's calculation of kids riding the bus or not riding the bus, which leads to a lower number. And if we're equipped with that information, the board's out there saying, okay, well, this cost us $2 million. Our allocation was X. We had to pay $200,000 operational. That's because the ridership was low this year. Right? That's information that can equip them to answer.
And we've gone to school board conventions that, you know, we've talked to other districts and they're like, PED gives us a check and we just turn around and give it to the contractor and they say it's not enough. We're like, well, that's all they're going to give us and that's all we're going to get. So, you know, there's districts out there like that as well. And they're like, we can't subsidize anymore because everything that we have outside of this goes to the kids.
Right.
And that's the other piece is to this is if we take $200,000 away from our operational budget, what can we do with that to be able to educate our kids, to educate your kids?
Is that money we take away from the classroom?
Where does it go? You know what I mean?
Everybody's running.
Yeah.
I currently help another district out too. But I mean, I still charge them, sending my dirt out there and all that stuff too, so I
Yeah.
understand.
And then federal programs are getting cut, you know, across the board in a lot of different places. And so where does that gonna look like in another year?
And our enrollment's going downward trend. And so, I mean, I don't know if we need an efficiency study about routes or anything like that.
No, and I do want to thank you guys because I think the questions that you've had over the years, even just in the short time that I've been with the district, has really made us think about the process that we're going through. I can't speak for the process before, but I know that in the last 2 years, like I said, this was only the second time that I myself bring this team to the table that includes the people that I've mentioned. And I want to thank Joe because he's been helpful in creating this spreadsheet to kind of help us wrap our mind around what's been done in the past. Can we find a pattern there? Or what is it that we can do moving forward? And now we have those breakdowns that for next year, things are gonna look differently, like Superintendent Wilson talked about. And we can have those things that you all are asking. So, and I want to thank them too for being willing to kind of sit at the table and
Yeah.
provide the information that we're requesting.
And disclaimer, I think from the board, and I think I can speak for the board in the respect that we're not pointing fingers at anybody and we don't want anybody to feel like they're to blame. It's just, we want to be able to educate ourselves on this and be able to, as we go forward, make correct decisions based on what we have in front of us and then justify those decisions to people out in the public.
One of the things that the last thing I'll add before we move on is, one of the things that part of my 5-year plan was to try to do cost analysis for the department to see where we are with the district itself. And that's, I think, that where we're headed with Joe in this last piece of the spreadsheet and another.
Before you finish the PowerPoint, I think Ms. Cameron had one comment and then we can continue. Ms. Cameron, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Well, I don't know, maybe this is another discussion, but I'm also concerned about the safety of where our routes are, where our kids are left out. Like I was saying, my children, when they were left out in the middle of a road that was, 15 miles to the house, 15 miles to the city, just to make sure, and I'm not saying that's happening now, but just to make sure that our points where we leave our children should also be looked at to make sure they are safe, because we would, heaven forbid, any child be left. And it really wouldn't be the bus, but we could together make sure the most safe way we can.
And thank you for that comment, Ms. Cameron. I know I'm gonna let Ms. Treviso file that away in considering her route analysis project that she wants to launch sometime this school year. So we'll make sure we consider that.
Just as a point to that, my 2 grandkids do ride the bus. And there was one time, it was one of the early releases, whatever it was. The bus ended up at the stop before my wife was able to get there to pick them up. There was phone calls made to my wife. They didn't just, the kids were not just dropped off and left. There was phone calls made to make sure that they were doing what they were supposed to.
No, and I'm not being critical, I'm just,
So I think the bus contractors are doing that to ensure our safety of our kids.
right.
I just wanted to clarify one other point here. Earlier, I think it was misstated just slightly in that as we talk, our allocation for the transportation, non-rental, was $2.8 million, or just shy of $2.8 million. The total that is in the contracts for M&T and Haynes is just shy of $2.2 million. That's leaving $600,000 for our transportation department,
Yes.
the employees,
Correct.
the buses that we run, those types of things. Now, it's not enough,
Right.
I see that, yeah.
but it was mentioned a little bit earlier, and just wanted to clarify, not everything that's in that allocation does go to the bus contractors, because we do have the transportation department and a couple of buses that we operate.
Right.
Okay,
Thank you.
now, operational does subsidize that, because if you look at, going back to the PowerPoint. I did this analysis, again, as part of the contract. And basically, I took what was our expenditures during the 24-25 year. I increased the salaries and benefits by the 4% because we know that increase is going to be there. And so total cost of to and from transportation by the schools is just over $1 million. Now that is the $600,000 is going towards that as well. Okay, so this is not what's coming out of operational. It's about $400,000 is what's coming out of operational to subsidize the transportation.
Do we have any idea how that compares to other districts of similar size to Deming?
We did talk with the help of Superintendent Nick. We've got some information from Gadsden in what they do. And of course, their size is
They're bigger.
twice the size of ours,
Mhm.
and their subsidy is about twice of what ours is.
Right.
So from a reasonability standpoint, I know that's just one other data point,
Right.
but that kind of makes me feel a lot better that
We're in the ballpark.
it's in the ballpark of where that should be.
Right.
And it has been, a requirement for as long as I've been here, that operational does have to subsidize
Right.
some of that to and from transportation.
And depending on the district, right? Like I said, we operate a little bit larger transportation department here with activity buses. Whereas, for example, in Gadsden, Boone, they own all the activity buses, right? So that's, so, you know, when it comes to stuff that's going to the district directly, there's less in Gadsden because they have, you know, have turned more of that over to the contractor to do just about everything. But but to Joe's point, they have about twice the number of buses. The subsidy that Gadsden uses is about twice what we use. So it's the subsidized. It's on the subsidies are very equivalent percentage wise.
We can operate the buses cheaper than the district can because
Right.
you guys paying in the benefits and.
Correct.
Insurance.
Correct.
So I know when Milo was here, he was gonna retire, and I think, I don't know if he signed, but 64 and 70 were gonna turn to one to M&T, one to Haynes, for that reason being. So we could hire just our drivers, it would be a lot cheaper than having you guys someone full time, as far as the benefits and all that stuff. Activities, I mean, because I always had activities.
Yeah, yes.
And the 16% insurance on this slide that you referenced to, is that the insurance on the buses?
So,
Or what is that?
that is our property insurance in total.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so all of our liability, our property, all of that insurance went up. Now, a piece of that does insure the buses.
Mhm.
That's the reason why I don't have a straight dollar number
Yeah.
down here. Because it's lumped into all of our insurance that we have through NIMSDA.
And contractually that we're obligated to
Yeah.
provide that.
And that's a heck of a jump.
Well,
Yeah.
that's everything.
But that's, that's what the insurance companies do, is they look at what they paid out and they're gonna make sure that they make their money, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and we are unique, I think, compared to a couple of different, as Superintendent Nick said. At Gadsden, they've got one bus contractor that handles everything, the routings and all of that stuff. To where we have two bus contractors, and so. The contractors aren't really able to do a lot of that stuff that needs to be done here at DP in the schools. Because they couldn't do the routing individually,
Yeah.
it's gotta be done as a total.
That'd be silly. Go ahead, go ahead. I know this is like yours, Patty. And we may have touched on some of this thing from about the 6%, right? The reason for the 6% increase, I think we kind of might have
Yes.
touched on that. but I'm
And
not-
so at this point,
There's an additional question.
again, thank you, Joe, because he's done a marvelous job of helping us kind of keep the numbers straight and how to be able to present that information. And so our department's been working really closely with finance department. So what I wanted to do at this time is pretty much turn it over to you all, kind of let the contractors, I know you've already presented some information, but if you have anything else to show for that and be able to speak to that 6% of exactly where it's going, the breakdown of that, and just kind of hand it over to you all if you have any other questions for them.
I know you shared a little bit about, you gave some examples, Mr. Sanchez, of the, just kind of the maintenance costs, the operation costs of your program, right? Your program, you're getting the buses here and there to cruises and Abbotsford and waiting, and buses out of commission.
Sure.
I don't know if there's any, or Mr. Haynes, if there's anything additional you want to share with the board about the reasoning for the 6% increase, or if there's other questions the board may have in clarifying that. So I'll give you all a moment to think about that.
As far as, I say, before the training, the district would pay for the training. Now we're paying the training, so I mean, the flow of drivers, matter of fact, we just lost 4 drivers, because I mean, we don't have a contract yet, so I mean,
Sure.
it was kind of like, what's going on?
Mhm.
To hire someone, I mean, just to train on himself, to play the class and the license is 1,500 per driver. I mean, this past year we hired like 7 drivers. Some that's still coming out of us, and
7 drivers, then we lost 4.
so after paying for the time being, there's 36 hours of training, still things that will drug test and add on to it. So now I am certified, SBDI certified, so now I can do the training to try to save my company a little bit more money as far as the training costs. This past year, knock on wood, I mean, we had a full fleet. I even had 3 drivers come in, three potential employees come in. Well, we can't hire a sub, nobody wants to be a sub, nobody wants to be on call. So what I did, I went ahead, hired those a little bit, I told Patty about it. So I could ask for a little bit more money, so I went ahead and hired those 3 drivers. So I know, these routes, I mean, I drive personally, bus too, it's hard, especially when you have to do your seating charts, I mean, you got there's buses that have 2 routes. So you drop off kids, maybe have them for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. You gotta know their names. You gotta know where they're gonna sit at. You drop them off, you pick up another batch. So it's kind of hard on the driver. So what I did, I hired these 3 employees. I had them working kind of like part-time, full-time. So I had them there every day. So whatever driver needed help, so I would put, actually the sub driver I hired, he would drive the bus. Then the driver itself would actually stand up and, talk to the kids, get to know the kids, right? Now, when I'm sitting you over here, kind of, and that, I think that helped us a lot. As far as having as far as the kids, misbehaving and stuff like that. I think that helped us all out a lot. So, I mean, that's why I was asking for a little bit more. I actually wanted a little bit more so I could keep doing the same thing, hire more drivers, have us subs, full subs. Don't have some.
Well, the school did hire, monitors and all that, but I mean, only one. I mean, we got 31 buses, Haynes got another though. So I mean, you can bounce them around. I mean, Mr. Rizzo did a great job. We got some monitors down in Columbus. That's helping out a lot. With those kids, we got 70 some kids and in one bus, during 2 trips. You know what? That's hard. So that really helped out a lot. So we started seeing that, helping out these drivers and all that. And now that they want to drive, so we did that over here. And like I said, Mr. Rizzo did a hell of a job. But she can't, okay, I need you here, but bouncing around.
Right.
So we did 3 drivers. And like I said, that was amazing. I mean, it was really helpful. So that's what
And I mean,
we're
the logistics surrounding, I mean, I don't know how they found out, start coming, hey, can you help us out? I mean, my priority's here, so I mean, I'll just look to you guys. I mean, but I did help patch as far as activities during the weekends and all that stuff, but I mean, everybody's already, it's hard to get drivers in. That's why I want to give them a little bit more raise, trying to keep them here. I know our contract, there's no contract that says kind of, up to everybody. I do pay a year round, so I mean, I can't really pay them. I could pay them July, but I'm not sure if we're gonna sign it or not yet. So it kind of puts us in the bind, so I did lose 4 drivers, so it's put us in the bind, starting off, I mean, it hurts everybody. As far as we're not alternate buses, and we're not, I mean.
Mr. Rizzo also has, deadline. She has to report, okay, here's a bus assigned seats, you know what I'm saying? We can't come through. She's over here pushing us, well, we can't come through, you know what I'm saying? And so what do? Well, send me one of your sub. Well, I can't know, you know what I'm saying? So, and that really helps out a lot. And them drivers are really, they want to drive. Just other way they don't want to drive.
I mean, we started off, it was hard to get people in. Now they're actually knocking on doors. They want to drive. I don't know if we're doing something right. I don't know. But it's something good, I think. But it is hard to get them trained. It take maybe 3 weeks to get them trained, license and all that stuff, and it does take a little bit.
I can speak on Gabe's point, and we're one of the only entities that they have to get medically certified and get their tests and permits done before they even have the job. So they have to do all that on their own. And it being part-time, the pay's gotta be there to entice them to come in. And if it's there, I've got several now that are in training, the pay's there. And they're willing to do all that extra work without the pay so they can get the job.
What is your rate? Do you have for your to and from drivers? Is it a rate by hour, rate by day?
I do my route.
Yeah, I do my route too.
When you talk about entity, is it you yourself as the entity, or are you talking about the?
Bus contract.
Oh,
In general,
Yeah.
as a general rule,
They can come in through the application, everything, but then you gotta give them, this is what you gotta do first, and this is what you gotta do second, before I can start your training. Once you're trained, they have the job, but they gotta get all that done first.
So pretty much they have to go to the MVD, take 4 tests. And that's kind of a majority of them kind of give up. We do have a small MVD. There's only one computer, right?
Yes.
Computers. It's kind of hard. Especially, I mean, females, there's females that want to work. But it's kind of hard to get them started. You can't really train them and send them where to get tested, so it's kind of, if that's best tested, then we can train them. But you can't train them and send them out, it's get tested. So
And to get medically certified, they have to go to the doctor, so that's an out-of-pocket cost, and around here, it's $100-something just to get that test. These last 2 years, I have a contract with First Choice in Las Cruces where I'll send them to the one that takes care of the pre-employment drug screen and the medical exam. I get a discount for it, and then I pay for it. That helps entice them. That way they don't have to spend that extra 100 and something they may not even have. So now they can get all that done and I'll pay for it.
And
Other-
have you all provided financial statements to the district to show like all these costs?
No, it's more kind of just our expenditure report at the end of the year, but I like an individual, like this is what we paid for this and that, random screen every 3 months and. Or I do all employees, it's about 1,900. Just for that, but we random on everybody. And that's required by law. Or half the growth.
And President Roscoe, members of the board, member Crumley, I think that, well, that's something that in conversation with Mr. Riso, contractually and in state statute, we probably didn't have clarity at the time. Negotiations were going on that we, we had the option to ask for more detailed, financial statements. And so, that's something that, again, in possible future negotiations, we're committed to, doing a better job with the contractor saying, hey, this is, as we move into this, this is some more specific information that we're gonna need. So again, that was something that, but in this process that we learned as well. Other questions about the 6% raise, and then we got a couple more slides. We'll take a short break and then talk about, the activity buses separately.
Anything else you guys would like to add?
Anything on your end, Brendan, as far as, I know Gabe talked about what his increases were, do you have anything different than that?
No, it's about the same, and then maintenance, like your main things, tires, windshields, airlines, certain components, like you talk about turbo actuator. I've got one on here, it's 2,300, that's part alone. It still has to be installed and calibrated. We don't have the calibration equipment to do it. It has to be a computer with a certain software. One of the things too, is we're required to buy air conditioned buses now. Before, we have two on my end that this district pays for maintenance and repair on that until it pays out. All the new ones that are coming air conditioned, we have to buy the systems to charge them up or decharge them, and that's about between $8,000 and $10,000 just for that piece. That doesn't include the amount of Freon we have to use for those buses. They take between 15 and 20 pounds per unit, and there's 3 units on that bus.
And the filter, you have to change out the filters on it, it's maybe $200.
Yeah, I just had a bus that had sand in the filters. It was having real trouble getting powering up and everything. Took it to border. $1,100 just for the filter and diagnostic.
Let me ask a clarifying question because I don't know this, because this could be a factor different in Deming than other places. So obviously you may or may not, right? You have a level of maintenance facilities at your, as part of your contracted company. But what I'm hearing you say, right, there's a level of maintenance and repair that you can do based on the facilities and the technicians or the mechanics you may have. But there are another level of maintenance and repair that is having to be, right, we're using contract outsourced to somebody in Cruces or somebody in Albuquerque. Is that kind of what I'm getting there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Go ahead. Anything else? Fine.
Okay,
Ben, we need to loop back. We can. Patty, go ahead.
so the next question that was asked is, okay, what are the reasons for terminating an existing? So we went ahead and did a little bit of research, and it's also included in the contracts themselves that you have a copy of. There's 3 reasons: violation of law, violation of the terms of the contract, and then of course, violation of regs and policies at the state level, or even school board policy. So the procedures for that is that if we do find violations of any of those 3, then the board shall serve notice to the contractors in person or by certified mail. And we must specify the charges against the contractor. Then the next step would be we'd have to hold a hearing no later than 10 days after that notice is issued. From there, then the contractor would have the right to appear and be represented by legal counsel to be heard and to call witnesses. And basically, the board shall have the power to suspend the contractor pending the hearing. Then the final step in that is the decision of the board shall be final and conclusive, subject only to the approval of the state transportation director. And so that was one of the big questions that was asked, and this we found, like I said, you can even turn as you look through the contracts, that is kind of clarified there, and then the New Mexico Administrative Code goes into a little bit more detail about that process. Any questions?
I'm gonna say something, because of course, we hear a lot of things and we're told a lot of things, and we need to respect everyone here. She's an amazing person. She represents the board and the district. And I think in the past years or the past months, plainly, she needs to be respected. You're getting a contract from the school district, so that's the person. If she tells you to jump, this is what we need to do, that's what we need to do. We don't want to hear anymore that we're having troubles or we're having issues. We are not carrying cows. We are carrying human beings. We're carrying our kids, our futures. So we need to make sure that we have good bus drivers. We have good ideas of how to make things better, not just, well, we can't do this. We don't want to hear that no more, because the past couple of months or years, we've heard it over and over and over. This is happening. That's it. I know kids are more disrespectful this year, but there's ways we can solve the problems so that we all can get along. So we don't have to send letters. So we don't have to get upset, or people in the community are getting upset that their kids are being mistreated. And so I hope this year that we can come to some kind of agreement that we all respect each other and we listen to each other and we get things done.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, I think we come to the table with the discipline matrix, you know, for the buses and trying to get that regulated. We heard you guys with that. But we want to make sure that this is a clear understanding that we're the ones that are, at the end of the day, we're the ones that hold the purse and you guys are providing the service. Seems like it kind of got skewed, just kind of piggybacking off of that a little bit. And that's nobody to blame, but we just want to make sure that going forward, $2.1 million, a lot of money that we're going to be spending with you all. And we want to make sure that we understand that there's clear lines of understanding that we have the purse in this whole thing. You guys are providing a service, and we don't want to hear about stuff where staff is getting hassled about this or having to jump through hoops to be able to get something that they shouldn't have to ask for more than once. It's as simple as that. You guys are in business. You guys are business people. You guys, if you put if you guys come sit in this situation, you wouldn't want the same for yourself. We're just asking for the same. I don't think we're being unreasonable. We're just asking for the same that you would if you were sitting here.
That's why I jumped forward, and that's why I hired those 3 drivers.
Yeah.
And I got them licensed. For that reason being, you know?
Yeah.
We got problem bus. I have a driver, sub-driver drive that bus for Holden. And I have a driver modern that bus, talk to kids. And that's the thing out of those, right?
Yeah.
And he still pays for those 2. That'll came out of her pocket, you know? I mean, that's something that was my idea. I told Patty about it. She's like, go ahead. I mean, we can't fund you for that. And I went and jumped and did that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, no, and I get it. The life that I lived before, believe me, I've seen the worst of the worst in the last 20+ years. I know, I get it. I completely understand. I'm probably more understanding than most on this board because I've seen people at their worst time and time again. So I get that. It's just I want to make sure that, you know, we have to build those relationships because they're kids, they're not going to know any better. And I mean, you look at some of the environments that they're coming from, man, oh man. You know, I handled the call before I got here and you know, this kid that's facing challenges and the stuff that they were exposed to at home is when they interviewed them, the kids were like kind of indifferent to it because it had been happening for so long. They're like, but to one of your kids, one of my kids, man, they'd be in counseling for months. And so these kids are exposed to a bunch of different stuff. And then, you know,
There's one, I mean, I didn't eat on. So a kid, I mean, I'm always jumping around, right? Some buses I'm driving this as well. And I told him I felt good. That kid came up, he's like, hey, mister, you're my bus driver, Okay, he was already ready to come back to school.
Yeah.
I mean, that felt good.
Yeah.
I was like, well,
100%.
You're actually impacting the kids, you know?
It is.
Because, you know, I think they're looking at, you know, well, I think lots of kids, stuff like that, you know, and I have the drivers doing the same.
Yeah, and you guys see it,
But
and
you're not gonna drive this gonna be, it's kind of.
yeah,
you know?
and you guys see that. That's what you guys got to pass on to your employees is the same way, man. Because yeah, it feels great to see a kid run up that you hadn't seen in months and like, hey, give you a hug or
Always rowdy one and
yeah,
comes up and like, oh.
I do have a comment though. When it comes to like student behavior, we talked a little bit about training, the training that the bus drivers receive. Have you all thought about maybe reaching out to the community to help you to train your bus drivers? I know that a person who doesn't have expertise in the area of kids' behavior is going to have a little bit more trouble handling kids who have difficulties. But there's a lot of agencies in Deming, like CYFD and other agencies that could probably help you all. And I know it's an investment when it comes to training, and I know it costs money, but you could probably get some very supportive training for your drivers. And that would really, I feel like that would really make a difference, because like Mr. Orozco was saying, kids are coming from very difficult situations, and every you know, all behavior is learned behavior. And so if a child is acting a certain way, there's a possibility that it's coming from the home or the situations that they're going through. And I know that when we talked about that last year, that you all were having behaviors, and we got stricter when it came to consequences. Consequences is one thing, but support is another. And so having the bus drivers understand that they can make referrals. We did talk to you about that, like letting the counselor know at the school, hey, this child is showing this behavior. Can you all support us? So I really feel like we can definitely be partners with you all. And I know that your job is very difficult, but there's a lot of people at the school with a lot of expertise that could help you. And there's a lot of organizations in town that could help you all too. So just keep that in mind. And maybe that will help next year.
Do we have any more slides before we do a little recess here? Okay.
I do want to thank you all for your support. Like I said, I've always felt very supportive at the board level, at the district level, and both Ms. Mora and I have our teachers at heart, administrators. And that was the first thing coming into this department, is raising that level of quality service, is that students come first, safety first, and we've been working with them on that. And they do, you know, they're open-minded to collaboration, and we do offer the services. When EC comes in, we're able to provide a lot of those trainings. So I thank you for hitting on that point, because we feel it's important. We do capturing kids' hearts, because we know that building those relationships are important, and then being able to
So all of the bus drivers are
so
involved with that?
initially, they would join us in our trainings, and now they've chosen to kind of do their own training, and we have provided a list of those that we want them to seek. They can, however they reach out to either REC or themselves, but we do that for our own drivers, and we used to include them on it. But those are crucial trainings that I definitely are important for a bus driver. And so.
No, there's a lot of, and just real quick, and then I'll hand it back to you. But there, I mean, in something you may pursue as well, is there's a bunch of churches, and there was at one time there was a group of churches that would meet regularly, but maybe reach out to them and see if there's volunteers that would sit on your buses to help with that kind of stuff. And they're probably older people, but they may be free and they may be available for those hours and may not want anything compensation wise. It can save you guys a few bucks.
Yeah.
So I mean that's a possibility too, or even put it out there, volunteers. There's some older folks that want just some attention that they don't have because they're living on their own, and man, you give them 2 hours a day or 4 hours a day of helping out. You never know what you get. Yeah.
But help with that,
Yeah.
the application process or whatever.
Yeah. So volunteers, I mean, hey, you never know what you might get.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, two slides left here before the break.
Sorry,
I'll
be quiet now.
You're fine, Mr. Roscoe. You and I'll be a competition, right? Who can go the most?
I'll be
Okay.
quiet. I'll be quiet now.
For administrative code is that for the procedure for terminating the contract, the buses owned by the contractor should be appraised by 3 qualified appraisers appointed by the board and approved by the state transportation director. And then the succeeding contractor would purchase those buses. That's in the event that we were to terminate a contract for the reasons stated earlier, because that was one of the questions that was brought up. Okay, and then another request was that not do an RFP, but do a request for information, which is a process through procurement, reaching out to other transportation services in the area to see what are their quotes. Provide a quote for, you know, gave them the number of routes, just in general. We sent them out to Student Transportation Services, actually STS, to Boone Transportation, Montoya Transportation, and First Student Incorporated. Of the 4, 1 responded immediately, and I listed that quote that they provided. But I do want to point out in the yellow there, they are a full service contractor. meaning that they provide things that our current contractors that we are familiar with do not provide. For example, and then I listed in there, included in that 3
Just over 3 million.
Or three, yeah.
3 million, they're including the number of routes existing right now minus the 2 with the district. They do cameras, the routing software, the tablets, the radios, the GPS, and then a whole team to run the operations. So an operation manager, a trainer, a coordinator, dispatcher, and 2 technicians. And so just, I want to point that out, that that is a full service contract for that amount, just a little over 3. Whereas you can compare the different, not full service in the current contractors that we have. And so you can take that information. That was something that one was pending. I think we got
And that's for the whole district, or is that just for one route?
for the number of 31 and the 16. So together,
Together,
those, not including the district activity buses and the 2 sped routes. And that, again, just to kind of give you an idea, we're not comparing apples to apples there because the STS quote included those things that are listed in the bottom. So it is much higher, but it includes additional.
It includes
things.
more. It includes things that the district is paying for right now.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's exactly the point that I was gonna make there. You're looking at a little over $3 million for a pretty much full service.
Almost everything.
If
Yeah.
you look at what we do in bus contractors and what we have in DPS as employees and as a department, you're right about that same number. We may be a little bit higher than that because of, being DPS employees, as was mentioned earlier, there's different benefits, benefit packages and stuff like that as being a DPS employee. So that's going to cause that number to be a little bit different. But it's kind of in the same ballpark if you look back and add it all.
And that's STS.
Yes.
They're already for drivers, they can call them OTs.
Everybody's looking for drivers.
Yeah, so look at that.
Other questions that we might have about the to and from? If not, I'm gonna ask President Roscoe if we could have a motion for about a 5-minute recess for a little restroom break, water refill, and then we'll dive into the activity contracts.
The motion, take a 5-minute break.
Absolutely.
I'll second.
Mr. Kroll.
Sir, Mrs. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron?
Yes.
Mrs. Crumley?
Yes.
Mr. Orozco?
Yes,
Mr. Crowe, yes.
be back in 5.
And I just say thank you for all your input and information.
Okay, we're back from break and I'll entertain a motion to go back into
Second that?
Mr. Kroll.
Yes. Sir. Mr. Orozco?
Yes.
Mrs. Crumley?
Yes.
Mrs. Paez?
Yes.
Mr. Crow, yes. Mrs. Cameron?
Yes, I don't know what.
All right, we're back on record.
And just very briefly, we talked about the to and from, which is one set of contracts, and then the activity items, the activity portion of our presentation, that's a separate set of MOUs that are separate from the to and from contracts. You know, on the back of the packages you were given are all the additional MOUs, and the very last page of your packet for each one describes the activity bus charges. And of course, Joe and Patty will have some Excel spreadsheets to share with that as well. So, Patty?
So, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Muth, this next portion is specifically directed to the activities portion. So I wanted to start with just kind of giving you an overview of our activities bus team. So again, just for comparison from last year to this year, last year we had 2 full-time activity drivers, 2 sub-drivers, and then I take it back, 2023-24, and then last year, 24-25, we had 3 full-time drivers and 3 sub-drivers. So that did make a huge difference. You're gonna see in the numbers in just a little bit. So normally what the district has done is we use a memorandum of understanding to come to agreement with the contractors. Again, this is something that's brought to the table at negotiations, those rates. In front of your screen, you can see what has happened over the last few years. I was able to dig back and find 18, 19 all the way to current years. So there you can see there's 2 sections. The rate per mile for a DPS bus, then the rate for driver, and then the contractor bus rate per mile and rate for driver. So as you can see, this upcoming year, we had said we would stay the same. We would not go up. So last year it was $189 per mile and $19 per driver for a DPS bus and $305 per mile on a contractor bus and $19 per hour on a contractor bus. And so I'll give you just a moment to kind of go through that. And then we'll be open to any questions you have. I know that one of the biggest questions was why, if our DPS bus is contracted out, why would we have that rate per mile? And we can open it up for discussion.
So let me clarify for the boards, they're looking at the columns D and E. That is a contractor bus, right? Being driven by obviously a contractor driver, right? Of course, columns B and C, those are DPS buses being driven by a contract. So just for clarity purposes there. And so, like I said, Patty brought up a question that we talked about in leadership. But before we, get some feedback from the contractors on there's anything additional that you have about what you're seeing here.
So why the $1.89 a mile?
Okay, and so
Yeah, so that is, so again, again, I think for our contractors, that is also as a new superintendent, wasn't involved in these discussions. I had that same question for 2 reasons, okay? One, in years 18, 19, right? 19, 20, 20, 21, 22, there was no rate per mile charge for a contractor to drive one of our buses, but other years, there was. So as a new superintendent, that's a question that I had. Why some years yes, some years no? And then the second question was why a rate per mile for any reason you would charge a driver to drive our bus. I speculated in my mind what some reasons could be, but I said I should stop speculating because we'll have the folks here to answer.
So all, just from my perspective,
Okay.
I cannot speak to the past years, but from 23 on, what I understood was that when the contractors drive our bus, they refuel our bus. So part of that rate per mile is to refuel the DPS bus. And then the rest is for the contractors, the driver. The driver is the $19 per hour, but after they fuel the bus, that is their portion of the trip. Pretty much. And that's where I'll open it up to them, see if they can provide any other insights. They said. No.
So the 189 is the fuel?
Includes the fuel to refuel our bus and then whatever for the drivers, for the contractors.
And you guys are best positioned to answer that because that was,
And then you guys are paying $19 an
No,
hour.
we are.
We're paying.
We're paying the driver plus we're paying per mile.
Can I speak to this? So is it because we're not paying maintenance? Because.
But it's our bus.
it's our bus, so we are.
Yeah, we're gonna pay the maintenance. But but you're right. It's less than, it's not the $3 because of the fact that we're not reimbursing them for the maintenance.
So you guys are
We're taking
paying
care
your
of
bus
that.
drivers $19 an hour when we use your drivers.
Yes, we're contracting out to use. So that's where we.
But
We're paying them.
we're paying
We're
the
paying.
$19,
No, the driver. So the $19 goes straight to the driver.
right, from us, right?
From us.
19
Per hour.
Yeah.
Plus the dollar.
The invoice, you gotta pay us. when we
Right,
have the driver.
so we're obviously you're invoicing us for the $19 per hour for the trip, pull up, right, using our bus,
Yeah,
plus the $1.89.
yes.
Okay, so the question that, again, I think the board would like some clarity on, and I, as a new superintendent, would like some clarity on. The $19, that's not a question, right? That's.
We got that covered.
We got that covered.
For the time.
We got that covered, right, for the time. My question, as a new superintendent is, driving our bus, the $1.89 a mile, what is that for, and why is it there sometimes, and not there sometimes in the past year? So that's the questions I have is,
So back to 19, Silver City's charging $25 per driver. Yes, that's pretty much the same one with you guys.
for activity drivers?
Yeah, two drivers, kind of ballpark.
Okay.
That's what I'm charging Hatch as well.
Okay.
26.
Right.
Then as far as 189, that goes to the field. So with you guys, we fill up with that and all that, and then operations as far as drivers on the phone with me. I mean, pretty much we're taking care of everything, right?
And our administrative fee.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So that's the 189, the $1.89 comes your administrative fee.
yes.
And the fuel.
And if you do like an in town, I mean, we're not even gaining nothing, we're actually losing. So as far as, I mean, I'm not having the district out, putting drivers out for. Versus you're making maybe
How often does this happen?
So I do have some slides to kind of. reference last year. Again, 23-24, we had a total of 468 trips. 71 of them were taken by M&T and 51 by Haynes. And then 24-25, we had the total of, I'm not sure why the total is shown there. 513 trips. 54 of them were taken by M&T and 20 of them were by Haynes. So the other thing that I was able to provide was, this is a side-by-side comparison there that you can see. Same information as the pie graphs, just kind of together. Now, one of the things I do want to point out is that MOU for the year 24-25 included that we use our DPS bus first. There were some Title IX issues that we wanted to make sure to cover. I think you remember from last year how we said.
And relate, how many buses do we have?
So we have 5 activity buses, 2 spares.
So we have a total
And
of 7.
And the 2 spares, Patty, you're talking about are regular route style buses. It's not 2 spare activity buses. Oh, they're 2 spare activity buses. Okay, all right.
But we actually have 7.
And why isn't it like split kind of in half there for the activity for Mr. Haynes?
So when,
The district has a lot of snub nose buses, not the conventional style buses, and my drivers aren't trained on those. And there's very few of them that are even willing to do it. They just don't feel comfortable in that style of a bus, and honestly, equitable on some of these trips. By the time I pay out the driver, the benefits into the state, the fuel, it's a wash.
And we are clear that the bus drivers are getting $19. They are getting the whole $19.
I'm actually doing more, actually.
And what's the difference between the snub nose and the conventional?
things like that.
So pretty much got the wheel.
Yeah, the wheels are behind you, so when you turn, it's almost later than you.
And the view on the mirrors would be a little
Yeah,
bit
the view
different.
is, your front view is completely different.
And then I'm all for the train. And there's,
And some of them will take it, they, if they're going.
So none of you guys have snub nose buses
No.
then?
So can
Because we
you
have the
bring
more
this
fancier ones, yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
but pretty much, I can get you licensed with Class B license. It's hard to find anybody.
Mhm.
Then only has Jolene, myself, and my wife now. Testers Pete, but I'm gonna be a tester as well pretty soon, so I'll be a tester and a trainer. So then, somebody has, maybe one trainer, right?
Christina, but she, Christina is her,
Yeah.
yeah, one tester up there.
That's, it's hard. Hard to find someone to train.
And a lot of them, where they could run a conventional bus in town, no problem, but you send them Las Cruces and a snub nose, they get real nervous real quick, and especially because it's DPS equipment, they're real
More
leery about
nervous.
hitting something, so they're like, yeah, you know, they.
I'd rather not, right? Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
rather-
if they just want to buy it, I'm like, it's okay, I'll fix it. But with DPS bus, they're a little more leery, especially when they're not very well.
And I
trained
started
or
as just leader, and that's what the training, which I provide the training for them, all the visitors. So either Jolene or myself, I'll do it.
Okay.
Depends if I.
What other questions about those costs of activity have in your mind?
So let's do a scenario real quick. So if you guys were taking an activity to go to Las Cruces, there's what, 120 miles or so? You're paying $19 an hour, so then you would pay, we would have to pay $226.80. We're doing, obviously. And then how much does it cost to fill up a bus? It doesn't cost $226 to fill up a bus, right? So then the rest of the money is your
Administrative fee.
administrative.
But that's to fill the bus, right? That's not I mean, that would be if it's empty, but the bus isn't gonna be
Yeah, if we get it from, so we'll top it off.
full.
Okay.
And that as well.
Yeah, yeah.
What's that?
That's
These are exhaust fluids.
Okay, so yeah, yes, I know what that, now you said that, I know what that is, thank you. As I told you on this.
No acronym.
Yeah, not my, I didn't, not my area of expertise, but yes, I do know what diesel exhaust fuel is, I do know that, I've heard that.
Realistically.
I think, well, you know, I know board members may have some more questions, and again, I think again, you know, I that was a question that I initially had, right? Some years we went without it, some years we haven't, right? You've got to please explain to me why 3 years on that chart, we weren't charging any extra, we weren't charging a per mile rate for you driving a DPS bus, and then we were, what changed for you all?
I mean, when I came in, we never used a DPS bus. It wasn't a requirement, so it was rotational. At the time, Mr. Mulo would send his drivers on DPS buses. And then between M&T and Haynes, they'd rotate, and we would just take our buses. And that's how we would do that, but we never, the only time I think we ever did was they were short drivers or it was a rescue. And that was it.
And
What
Patty,
if they requested storage?
Yeah,
Because
they
you
requested
got football team, you got band that need storage, and their school buses don't have that extra
Storage,
storage,
yeah.
and the activity buses do.
and our buses are kept perfect.
We try, we've got, you know, Pete on there, that's his.
So there should be no reason we should be using your buses. We should be using ours until we run out.
Unless we have all 7 of our buses
Okay.
out, which has happened at certain times, you
Times.
know. We, like I said, going back to that chart, it really did make a difference from the first year I was on with the transportation and only had 2 full-time drivers and 2 subs. To where last year we had 3 full-time drivers and 3 subs. And then even our mechanic, we throw him in the rotation. If we're in a pinch, we pull him from doing mechanic work and we have him drive because he is CDL certified. And so, like they mentioned, there was less trips, as you can see, that they took this last year because number one, I was a little bit better staffed. And then number 2, Mr. Haynes wasn't able to send drivers, either like he mentioned, it wasn't equitable to him or he didn't have the drivers available that could drive a snowmobile.
So that rate per mile, Mr. Adcock and Mr. Viso, If we were to put a gas card on the bus, it belongs to DPS, and then they log mileage starting and ending and how much fuel was added. I mean, what does that look like for us?
I mean, we need to make sure we focus that we use our buses. That's why I asked that they're in great shape, which I know they are. That we need to focus on using our buses because, I mean, it's a lot at the end of the day when it starts to add up.
I think the most we've had in a day, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, would be about 9 trips in one day. We get a very busy season between.
So our 7, and then they would have to bring in the rest.
Between October, November, when elementary start doing field trips for the fall, and then again in March through April, sometimes even into May, when they're doing end of the year field trips. Sports, we almost have most of the fall sports already in there in Trip Tracker. And so, yeah, it's those busy seasons when we can totally use up all of our buses and a few of theirs.
So, Mr. President, you asked about the fuel, if we were to pay that, using the same formula that we did for fuel for this year, where it's, 8 miles per gallon. If we went to cruises at 120 miles, 8 miles to gallon would need you 15 gallons. At the 339, that's just shy of $51 that would be for fuel. I'm not sure what DEF would be as part of that. I'm sure that's a cost. So from your 226 that we talked about earlier, minus the 50, you're looking at about $175 on that would go towards the DEF and their administration and overhead and those types of things.
We would be paying what, 200
So on that budget, you gotta fill up the death every single time. Cause on my F-250, I don't fill it up every single time.
Well, that's the agreement we have with DPS, we top off the debt and we top off the back.
Oh,
Okay, now it makes sense. Yeah.
Trip is.
Mhm.
yeah.
So the 226 is $1.80 per mile times 120 miles to and from Las Cruces, not giving a lot of runaround time in
Yeah,
Las Cruces.
obviously.
But that's what the 226 is that we were talking about.
Is the $19 an hour you guys pay, is that drive time? Or is that
That's wait time, that's everything.
That's it.
Right,
That's-
and
standby time?
And there's a lot of standby time activities.
But if a storm comes up or something
Right.
happens, the
Yeah.
driver's gotta be
Be
there.
Yeah.
And that's where you'll find a lot of times, for example, our wrestling tournaments can last all day long. Drivers are only allotted 15 hours in a day total on duty, including
Duty.
driving. And so there's times that either they'll have to send another driver or we send another driver. We try to work that out really carefully. But wrestling, sometimes,
Traffic.
track. What else?
Baseball,
Tennis,
baseball's last 2
baseball gets close, softball, but mainly wrestling.
Yes.
some of the basketball tournaments, if they have the weekend basketball tournaments, probably will.
But it resets if they spend the night.
Yes, they have to have 8 hours of
Downtime.
continuous rest before they can pick up again.
And there has been a handful of times that I remember that we had purchased a hotel room for the driver specifically for that. So that they are within their time frame.
Then the driver can't be working, say he's a sub, and baseball coach can drive a bus.
Yeah.
Must-
We tried that with some of our football coaches. Actually, one of our volleyball coaches, we had her get fully certified because she was always either tennis or volleyball but because she is also a teacher, we had to count that teaching time as part of the 15 hours. And so we didn't proceed with training any more coaches because we ran into that 15-hour gap at max.
Other questions about activity
Oh, so much.
trips? I will make one comment here, right? Again, in my in this new role as superintendent, learning more about transportation. My focus obviously, on all this, right? My focus is really for this was to get the greatest amount of clarity we could for the to and from, right? School starting. And being ready, being prepared and poised to transport kids and activities is important as well. What me and the team didn't have all the opportunity to do on the activity side was just like when I said, hey, the way we were getting information and providing information, the contract for the to and from, where we broke it down, fuel, operation, and maintenance, like the 3 separate parts, because that's what we learned was some other common practice in negotiations for other contractors. What I don't know, and what the team hasn't been able to find yet, is this is one way that we're getting information, like $1.89 a mile plus $19 an hour, for a breakdown for activity buses. I don't know if there's other methods of calculation that other contractors may use in presenting MOUs to districts on, hey, this is how we support driving activity buses. And so that's something that in future possible negotiations, if there's other ways to bring that information to you that gives the greatest amount of clarity, I think that's something that we can do. Mr. Adcock?
We did have one trip, this last year that was not able to be handled by either our drivers or, the contractors. And we got somebody out of Silver, I forget the name, and theirs was just a flat rate per hour.
Right.
They
Which
didn't have
is
any mileage. They did charge, I mean, they did use our bus, but they just charged us a flat rate per hour. Now, one of the disadvantages there is because they were from out of town, so they charged us both
Coming and leaving.
coming to get the bus, both, so that was extra from somebody in town.
And so to Mr. Adcock's point is, again, possibly moving forward for next year, if that is something that is a more provides you all more clarity, right? Then that's something that we can sort of see what's common, kind of statewide, to make sure our contractors and us as a team are giving information in the clearest possible fashion.
And
But
that's what I have attached.
correct.
Same thing with them, we try with flat rate,
Right.
then I try from them that
Right.
way. And that's what I'm with SDS
Right.
as well.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
if I have a board for
Sure.
giving one flat rate, but that also includes mileage and driver pay.
Now, I do want to point out that for this year, 25-26, they did request that we go up on the contractor bus and we just left it.
As is.
As you can see, it's the same. So that's what we had negotiated and that's what we had drafted in the MOUs, that will be on the agenda for Thursday for consideration. And so,
Any other questions about activity trips? Because then I think, Patty, I think you wanted to talk a little bit about the discipline matrix that you all presented last year and some revisions. Any other questions about activity buses? And I think it's important that our contractors be here for the discipline matrix things. I think a couple things. One, prior to getting this job, I call it watching the movies. Did spend a lot of time watching the last couple of years of board meetings and know that this was definitely something that was important to our contractors and important to our school board and administrators, that we have a clear matrix. I think Patty has seen some success in that. I do believe that Patty did go get some feedback from school administrators on some things that we're going to be changing here. This is really relative to the level of offense, the lower level offense, and making sure that we want our kids to be here in school. And so for those lower offenses, we want to try to see if we can, give them an opportunity to keep riding the bus a little bit longer, the lower level things. And so I think that was a little bit of the thought behind that. So Patty, I'll let you share. You have more information than I do, but I'll let you share a little more.
yes, okay, so what you have before you is just a draft. We're going to be presenting this to the administrators tomorrow. And then I'm also going to meet with the contractors if and when the contracts are approved. Then we have our first contractors meeting, kind of gather their input, have them go through what the changes are. Again, we want to meet in the middle. We know that, again, with the training, like Mrs. Paez has explained, that it's important for the drivers to get that training to know how to deal with students as they're driving a bus, which is a big thing for the bus monitors. We want to have extra people on the bus to assist the drivers so that they can drive safely, but then also have that bus management in check. So there's a lot of things that kind of ripple into this. Like I mentioned, the training is huge, but the consequences, being able to, again, in collaboration with M&T, and then just kind of trying to figure out ways to get this out to parents and to the students. They have proposed that, and we did it last year. that one time in the fall and one time in the spring, we stopped the buses for about 10-15 minutes. We put a PSA out to let parents know, hey, we're gonna be running about 15 minutes late. Today, we're gonna be going over the bus matrix. And these are the expectations. So you all know in education that is powerful. When a teacher stands at the front of the room those first few days, that's what makes the biggest difference in that classroom management. Same applies on the bus. If the drivers can take control of that bus and the manner in which they do that, letting students know, hey, I'm here to get you home and to school safely, but also these are the non-negotiables. These are the things that you have to do. You have to sit in your chair, limiting it to 3 or 4 or 5 things that you highlight for the students. Give them those expectations, hold them accountable, and when they don't, then you write that referral that then their administrators can take care of. If you'll notice, in each one of those levels, it is contact parents. So even if it's the first verbal warning from an administrator, the biggest thing right there is making a phone call to parents and letting them know, we had a conversation with your child, this is what they did, this is what we asked of them to do. And so then proceeding from there. And so feedback from administrators is that we did not want their child off the bus for the rest of the year. You can imagine what that does to a child, right? Some of them don't have any other means of getting to school, so we don't want to do that. So that's what you'll see in the proposed changes is the biggest thing there. And then again, in level 2 and level 3 is just the number of days that they are suspended from the bus, not school, just the bus, as it gets worse, the progressive discipline.
Let me pause you here, Patty. I'm gonna again refer back to level 1, right? A level 1 offense alone can never result in removal from the bus for the year. However, if you keep going on with the level 1 violations, this is very typical in school discipline as well. It moves into a level 2. So repeated level 1s become a level 2, and then again, you keep going up with that, you will eventually end up off the bus, right? But not just immediately because of 3 level 1 offenses.
And that's where we want to hear from the drivers that they feel safe on the road, being able to drive these students home and to school. But then we also want to make it fair for the students and give them adequate opportunity to correct their behavior. If they don't, then,
And parents are signing some type of contract or understanding that the rules for the bus at the beginning of the year, the parents are signing that as well, right?
Been at campus and they agree to the parents' responsibilities and student responsibilities. And like I mentioned earlier, we blast this on Facebook, social media, on our website. We have a copy in our transportation section, and then we stop operations for 1 day. And last year, we also went to the school sites and had assemblies with all of our bus riders. We brought them all into the gym. And Ms. Bonner and I had these short 10-15 minute assemblies where we reviewed the bus discipline matrix and said, you could lose bus privileges, so make sure you follow the rules. So we did those things to try to get that notice out to everyone. And it was good. It wasn't great. We still have referrals, but it was better than previous years. And that also.
But that was the first year you guys did that, correct?
Yes.
So, I mean, it takes a little bit to get traction. So, I mean, and it's just like the cell phone thing. I mean, the kids at intermediate, they get by the time they get to Red Mountain, it's kind of second nature. So it's going to take a process for them to understand the same thing, I think, here. So.
If I might add, the reason for the change in level 1 is a lot of the feedback from the administrators is they didn't feel it was fair to kick them off right like after the 3rd offense. So we kind of tried to create a progressive discipline so that it's they don't feel so boxed in.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
Any other feedback from the school board or thoughts from the contractors on this matrix?
I do have a question. I'm sure you don't have the data with you, but I'm wondering how many kids were actually not allowed to ride the bus or thrown off the bus after this.
So I don't have the exact data as of the end of the year.
You guys have a copy of that?
By about not yet, we haven't provided that yet. We had at least 15 that had been removed from the bus.
Completely.
Mhm.
Out of 2,800 kids? It's not bad.
Yeah.
The other
That's
thing,
reasonable.
have this out there again, just my first year, we had about 4 or 5. To the bus, we could never prove that they were vapes or things like that.
Yeah.
But do you remember when that happened? Last year, luckily, we didn't have any. But if you look at the level, that was part of the thing that we said, if we find a vape, it's immediate removal from the bus.
Yeah.
And so not only the drivers, but the administrators, and in our assembly, we emphasize that to try to get the point across to students.
Does that start over?
Yeah.
Or the next year you don't carry it over?
There's a couple of things that they go to long-term hearing that may, depending on the needs, but those are just extenuating. Normally, if wife's clean and you get a new fresh start on the street.
Thank you. I think you've done a very good job this year to get things intact.
We try, and we have an amazing transportation team. This one has been extremely helpful, and like I said, the collaboration is welcome together. We can do that.
Unless there's any other questions from the board or from our contractors, Mr. President, we're ready to adjourn.
Any questions from the board, comments?
No, except I think it's been a very productive meeting, and we thank
Yeah.
you for all that. I know it takes time to get it all planned, and we all appreciate it.
No, just to echo from the board, I mean, it's an ongoing relationship and we want to make it a fruitful one, but we also want to be able to have clear understandings about things. The trainings I know are huge. And the trainings not only are for your bus drivers and for the buses, but if for some reason, God forbid, something happens and we end up in a liability situation, those records are going to come forward. And if those aren't being met, those requirements, those hours aren't being met, man, the buck stops wherever that wasn't done. And so I just encourage you guys, if there's any to keep those records and to be complete with them, because of the fact that it's not only affects you, it affects this board and it affects the school district. So anything that we can do to help facilitate that, we're here to help. We want to be able to go about this the right way and have a great year. So. If other questions, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn at 7:31.
I'll second that.
Mr. Grohl.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Paez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron,
Yes.
Mrs. Crumley,
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.